Yes, a former Google engineer is speaking out against the company's alleged anti-conservative bias and warns it could affect 2020.
Kevin Cernekee worked at the company for 3 years before he was fired. He claims that he was harassed for his conservative views, and now he's concerned that some Google employees might work to make sure that President Trump loses next year.
And Kevin Cernekee joins us right now from Mountain View, California. Kevin, good morning to you.
Morning.
Thanks for having me on.
Okay, you're worried that Google is trying to put their thumb on the scale to beat Donald Trump, right? How do they do that?
Yes, that's absolutely true. When President Trump won in 2016, Google executives went up on stage right away and cried, literally tears streaming down their faces over the fact that President Trump won. They vowed that it would never happen again, and they want to use all of the power and all the resources that they have to control the flow of information to the public and make sure that Trump loses in 2020.
How do they do that?
Well, they have a lot of methods. One thing you might not know is that YouTube censors a lot. Like every 3 months, YouTube deletes about 8 million videos and 3 million accounts. Recently, Google has been getting extremely aggressive in censoring even political advertisements. They just openly do it. It works once or twice. There's no pushback. They continue. They ramp up the censorship. There's bias in the search results. They have released search quality ratings that say they don't want to be returning too many results for extreme sites, and if you're a conservative news outlet, they'll consider you an extreme site. So they have a lot of different ways of putting their thumb on the scale. They also have a huge amount of information about every single voter, every single person in the U.S. They can mine that information. They can use that to kind of build psychological profiles and figure out how to change your mind. They run counter-programming on YouTube. If you visit a conservative video, they will display other content below it.
Kevin, what did they do to you? I know you said you were fired. Tell us why you were fired and what you saw behind the scenes.
Yeah, so basically when I joined Google, I saw a lot of conservative employees being mistreated. They were being harassed, they were being threatened, they were being blacklisted, and I complained to HR about this. I ran it up the chain. I went to a VP and raised my concerns there, and I got a final written warning letter just for raising those concerns. So I took it to the labor board and I said, hey, look, Google is mistreating people. There's a lot of discrimination here. What can we do about it? And eventually they fired me for participating in that labor board investigation.
So Kevin,
I think President Trump needs to know that, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, please finish.
I think President Trump needs to know that there are a lot of potential whistleblowers in these companies, and they will speak up if they know that he has their back.
Kevin, here's what Google had to say about your firing. They said, we enforce our workplace policies without regard to political viewpoint. Lively debate is a hallmark of Google's workplace culture. Harassment, discrimination, and the unauthorized access and theft of confidential company information is not. So that's what they claim you did. You say it's because of political views. Why is it so one-sided? I think a lot of Americans would say a booming economy, capitalism is good for a company like Google. Why do they discriminate openly or privately against conservatives and President Trump?
They are very biased. There's bias at every level of the organization. There are a lot of activists working for Google. The group think there is extremely strong, and if you disagree with it just one iota, they will go after you, they'll target you, they'll make you an example. They are very, very intent on making sure that nobody inside Google can speak up against their bias.
Well, as we head toward the 2020 election, what should be done? Should Washington step in? What could be done?
I believe that's the most important thing that can happen. I think lawmakers need to step in. I think government agencies need to step in. They need to review the history of labor complaints against Google and see why were all these cases closed? What is going on in this workplace? The workplace problems are well documented, but nobody has ever stepped in to do anything about them. I think that's a disgrace.
Hey, Kevin, you work at Google, so you're intimately familiar with that organization. But would you say the same things happening at Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all the other social media sites? Is the same culture pervasive against pro-Trump or conservatives?
I have heard from friends that it is common at the other companies. I've heard that some of the companies are a lot better at keeping it kind of under wraps, keeping it under control. At Google, it's basically the Wild West.
What are you doing now? How are you putting food on the table?
I have another job in Silicon Valley.
All right, good.
Well, thank you very much for coming on and telling us your story.
Thank you,
it's scary to
raising the alarm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No kidding. All right.
Thank you.
Scary stuff when you consider there's someone controlling what you see, when you see it, and why you see it, and you don't even know what the code is behind it.
Well, they always say it's the algorithm, but they write the algorithm. And how many times today do you use Google?
Exactly.
This is nothing surprising, though.
No, it isn't. No, it doesn't surprise anybody, but you got to remember it every single day when you consider what you're looking at. All right, well, chilling new video.